All right, so you've given us a ton of articles and notes on .NET 9,
Microsoft's latest and
and
greatest.
we're going to break it all down for you,
It's like a crash course in all the cool stuff.
especially with the whole focus on cloud-native apps and performance.
Right, right.
This is a standard term support release, too, so 18 months of support.
Yeah.
So by the end of this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be like a .NET 9 whiz.
Ready to impress everyone, or at least satisfy your own curiosity.
Exactly. So first up, let's talk about the .NET runtime itself,
The heart of it all.
where all the magic happens.
And .NET 9 has got some neat tricks.
Oh.
One of the coolest things, I think, is the new attribute model for feature switches.
Okay.
So instead of messing with config files, you can just toggle features on and off in your code.
Interesting.
Right. Just use attributes.
I see.
And even better, it even supports trimming.
Trimming.
Yeah, so unused features, they're just gone. Poof. Makes the runtime leaner.
So it's all about efficiency.
Exactly. So smaller, more efficient applications.
Nice. Okay, so what about garbage collection?
Oh, yeah, that got a pretty big makeover, too.
I'd heard that, yeah.
.NET 9, it brings in this dynamic adaptation to application size thing.
Sounds complicated.
Well, it replaces the old server GC.
Okay.
Think of it like the garbage collector is smarter now.
Smart her.
It adjusts how it works based on the size of your app.
Ah, so smaller apps, they get a different approach.
Exactly. And bigger ones, they get the resources they need.
I see.
So basically, it means smoother performance, better memory management all around.
So it's kind of like everything's just running smoother.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And to help with that, they also added some loop optimizations,
Okay.
improved inlining,
Mhm.
and some enhancements for ARM64 architectures.
And all that means,
It just means faster code, more efficient code execution.
especially for, I imagine, like computationally intensive tasks.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so far it's sounding good. But enough about the inner workings.
Sure.
Let's talk about something we use every day,
What's that?
.NET libraries. What's got you excited in this release?
Oh, lots. Let's see. System.text.json got a lot of love.
Oh, yeah.
You can use nullable reference types now.
Within system.text.json.
Yep. So fewer, null reference exceptions.
That's always good.
More robust code. Plus, you can automatically export JSON schemas from your types.
Okay.
That's great for documentation, API integration, all that.
Makes sense.
And for those who, really care about formatting,
Oh, yeah.
you can customize JSON indentation.
I have to admit, customizable indentation, it does spark joy. Anything else in the libraries?
Oh, for sure. LANQ, they added some cool stuff there. 2 new methods, count by and aggregate by.
Right.
So let's say you're, working with a collection of data.
Mm-hmm.
You need to count how many items are in each category. You'd probably use group B before and then do some counting, right?
Yeah.
But with count B, you can just, do it all at once.
Ah, so it's streamlining that whole process.
Much cleaner, more efficient.
Makes sense.
And aggregate by does the same thing, but for, aggregation.
Like calculating averages.
Exactly. For
Yeah.
each group. No more workarounds.
I like it. So it's all about saving time.
Yeah. Speaking of which, did you hear about the priority queue update?
I did, yeah.
It's got a remove method now.
Oh, wow.
Pretty big deal if you're, managing priorities dynamically.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Especially if you're working with scheduling algorithms or resource allocation, anything where you got to change priorities on the fly.
Right.
Makes it much smoother.
So again, it's about making those complex systems work better.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. What about for folks who are working with security?
Oh, .NET 9's got something for them too. There's a one-shot hash method in cryptographic operations.
Wow.
It's supposed to be more resistant to side channel attacks.
So it's a safer option for sensitive data.
Yeah, much safer.
So .NET 9's really got security in mind.
Totally. They also added support for the KMSC algorithm.
Which is?
It's a message authentication code, a strong one.
Okay.
It's really about ensuring that your data's legit, especially for secure communications, digital signatures.
So locking down data is even easier now.
Way easier.
Okay, cool. What about reflection?
Oh, there's a big one for reflection.
What's that?
They introduced Persisted Assembly Builder.
And what does that do?
So now you can save those omitted assemblies to your disk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You can use them in more places, share them, even deploy them with your app.
So it's like Reflection got a power up.
It did, and to make it even better, it supports PDBs. Debugging, of course.
Okay, so it's more powerful and easier to use.
Way easier.
While we're on impactful changes,
Yeah.
there's that update to timespan, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, they added these new from methods,
Uh-huh.
and they use integers instead of doubles.
Okay. Why is that important?
Might seem small, but it's huge for precision,
I see.
especially for those, time-sensitive calculations. Doubles, they can have those weird errors.
Floating point issues.
Right. But integers, they're much more precise for time.
So it's a small change with a big impact.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the SDK now. What's new and shiny there?
Oh, lots. One of the biggest things is workload sets.
Okay, workload sets.
Yeah, remember those version mismatches?
Ugh,
Dependency
the
conflicts.
developer's worst nightmare.
Well, workload sets are here to save the day.
Oh.
You can group your workloads together and lock them to a specific .NET SDK version.
So like everything stays in sync.
Exactly. No more compatibility headaches.
That sounds like a huge relief.
It is.
Any other changes to the development process itself?
Oh yeah, definitely. The .NET tool install command.
Okay.
It gives you more control now.
Control over what?
You decide if a tool can use a newer .NET runtime, even if it was built for an older one.
I see.
So it's all about managing compatibility, making sure your tools work the way you expect.
Power to the developer. What about unit testing? Any changes there?
They made some good improvements to MS Build integration for testing.
Okay.
So you can run your tests in parallel now.
Oh, that's cool.
Speeds things up a lot, especially for big projects.
So faster testing, faster development.
Exactly.
Good stuff. But what about security? Has .NET 9 stepped up its game there?
It has. NuGet security audits, they cover transitive dependencies now.
By default.
Yep. So NuGet's checking not just your direct dependencies, but also the dependencies of those dependencies.
Wow. So it's a much, much deeper scan for vulnerabilities.
It is.
Okay. That sounds like a good thing for peace of mind.
Totally. And speaking of making things easier, the terminal logger got some love.
Oh, yeah. The terminal logger.
Yeah. They made it more user-friendly.
In what way?
Well, you get summaries of failures and warnings at the end of a build.
Oh, that's nice.
You don't have to dig through all that output anymore.
Makes things a lot easier to understand.
Right. They're really focusing on those little pain points.
The small things can make a big difference.
Exactly.
So the SDK is getting smarter, more helpful.
Definitely. And they even added a new command, .NET workload history.
What does that do?
It shows you the history of all your workload installations.
So if something goes wrong,
Yeah, it makes troubleshooting easier.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now let's jump into an area that's been getting a lot of attention lately.
What's that?
Artificial intelligence. .NET 9 has some big news on that front, right?
It does. There's this whole unified layer of C# abstractions for AI now.
Abstractions.
Yeah, think of it as a bridge between your .NET code and the AI world. Instead of dealing with all these complex libraries and APIs,
Right.
you have a simpler, more consistent way to interact with, large language models and stuff.
So it's like they're making AI more approachable for .NET developers.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be an AI expert to use it.
Okay.
You can use those models for all sorts of things, like generating text, translating languages, even writing creative content.
All from within your C# code.
Exactly. And there are embeddings and vector databases, too.
What are those for?
Oh, they're for, semantic search, recommendations, personalized content. It's a whole new world of possibilities.
Wow. It sounds like .NET is right at the forefront of the AI revolution.
It is.
And to support these AI workloads,
Mm-hmm.
.NET 9 has some new tensor types too, right?
Yeah, they added tensor primitives and an experimental tensor type.
Tensors, those are for.
Well, tensors are these powerful data structures for working with multidimensional data,
Okay.
like images, time series data, essential for those complex AI calculations.
I see. So they're giving developers the tools to build more sophisticated AI applications.
Exactly.
What about ML.NET?
Oh, MLNet got some updates too.
Version 4.0.
Yep. More flexible ML context configuration. You can load ON and X models directly from a stream, improvements to data frames,
Data frames are used for.
data manipulation, essential in ML.NET. And there's this cool new tokenizer stuff.
Tokenizers?
Yeah, they break down text into these smaller units called tokens.
Okay.
Super useful for natural language processing.
I bet. So it's kind of like ML that is getting even more powerful and versatile.
Definitely. Oh, and there's a couple of experimental things too. Torch Sharp ports for Llama and Phi models, and Causal LM pipeline APIs.
Torch Sharp.
It's a library that lets you use PyTorch, a deep learning framework, in .NET.
Okay.
And those pipeline APIs make it easier to use Causal M models.
Which are good for.
Understanding and generating text like in a logical sequence. Really interesting stuff.
So it's like they're opening up a whole new world of AI possibilities for .NET developers.
Exactly.
And speaking of AI, Microsoft.ml tokenizers also got an update.
Oh, yeah.
It supports more tokenization algorithms now, right?
It does. More options, more flexibility for different AI models and tasks.
So it's clear that .NET 9 is all in on AI.
Definitely.
It's giving developers everything they need to build, AI-powered applications.
Absolutely.
And it's not just out AI either.
Right.
.NET 9 keeps getting better, more robust, more versatile.
You can build all kinds of apps, web, mobile, desktop, cloud.
It's the whole package. Now, before we get lost in code, let's talk about something else that's important for building, production-ready apps.
Sure.
.NET Aspire.
Yeah, .NET Aspire is all about making it easier to build those observable, production-ready apps.
Observable meaning?
You can monitor them, understand how they're performing, make sure they're reliable.
Yeah.
It gives you the tools, templates, packages, everything you need to build apps that can handle the real world.
So it's more than just writing code.
Right. It's about making sure your app is ready for prime time.
Okay, so .NET Aspire got some new features in .NET 9.
It did. The dashboard's been improved.
Okay.
It gives you more insights into your app's health and performance.
That's good.
Resource lifecycle management's also easier now. You can manage databases, external services, all that stuff.
Makes sense.
And they added some new integrations and APIs too.
Yeah.
Gives developers more flexibility.
So it's becoming even more powerful and user-friendly.
Exactly.
And this is just for .NET 9. Or can you use it with older versions?
Good news. It works with both .NET 9 and .NET 8 apps.
Oh, that's great. So whether you're on the latest version or still, transitioning, you can still use .NET Aspire.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Now, with all this talk about modern apps and cloud-native development, I got to ask about ASP.NET Core.
Oh, yeah. ASP.NET Core. That's the foundation for modern web dev in .NET.
And it got some major upgrades in .NET 9.
It did.
So let's start with security. What's new there?
Well, security is always a big deal.
Right.
And ASP.NET Core apps built with .NET 9 are even more secure out of the box.
How so?
There's expanded support for ahead-of-time compilation.
AOT.
Yeah, AOT. It helps prevent certain types of security vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Plus, they've improved monitoring and tracing.
So you have more visibility into what's going on.
Exactly. You can detect and respond to potential problems faster.
So it's about having a layered approach to security.
Right, preventing attacks and having the tools to monitor and respond if something does happen.
And what about performance?
Oh, performance is fantastic in .NET 9. ASP.NET Core has seen some really impressive gains.
Like what?
Higher throughput, faster startup times, lower memory usage, the whole package.
That's the dream.
It is, and they do it through a bunch of optimizations. Smarter handling of static files, automatic fingerprinting, all sorts of under-the-hood tweaks.
They really went all out.
They did.
Okay, and speaking of performance, what about Blazor?
Oh, Blazor got some love, too.
Any highlights there?
Well, there are new templates for hybrid and web applications.
Okay.
Improved component render mode detection, and a better reconnection experience for server-side Blazor.
So it's all about making Blazor even more powerful and user-friendly.
Absolutely. And there are some great API improvements, too.
Yes.
ASP.NET Core has built-in support for generating open API documentation now.
So it's easier to document and share your APIs.
Exactly. Plus, they've enhanced native AOT support.
Which means
even better performance and security for your APIs.
So ASP.NET Core is it's well-equipped for building the next generation of web apps.
It is.
And speaking of the next generation, what about .NET MAUI?
Oh, yeah. MAUI, the cross-platform mobile and desktop framework.
I'm curious to hear what's new there.
Well, in .NET 9, the focus for MAUI is really on performance and reliability and, making it work even better with the underlying platforms.
Okay. So what are some of the specific changes?
One of the highlights is a new and improved implementation of collection view and carousel view.
Sure.
iOS and Mac Catalyst, those controls are essential for like displaying lists and scrollable content.
Right.
And the new versions are smoother, faster, more responsive.
So they've made those everyday UI elements even better.
Exactly. And they also made updates to existing controls, added new app lifecycle events, and improved native AOT and trimming.
Again with the native AOT and trimming.
It's all about performance. These improvements can lead to smaller app sizes and faster startup times.
I'm sensing a theme here. Performance optimization is like a top priority for .NET 9.
It is. And in addition to all that, MAUI has some other cool features too. Like for Windows desktop devs, there's a new title bar control.
Okay.
Lets you customize the window title bar.
More control for the developers.
And if you need to include web content in your app, there's a new hybrid web view control.
What's that for?
It makes it super easy to integrate JavaScript-enabled content. Stuff from like React, Vue, Angular.
So it's about giving developers more options and making it easier to build the experiences they want.
Totally. And there are some smaller but still cool improvements too. Additional keyboard modes for the entry control, automatic control handler disconnection, a more flexible way to define your app's starting point. MAUI is really maturing, becoming a powerful framework for cross-platform development.
It sounds like it. Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more thing.
What's that?
Entity Framework Core, EF Core.
Yeah, the data access workhorse.
It makes it easier to work with databases in .NET, right?
Exactly. It provides an object relational mapper, so you can interact with your database using C# objects and LINQ queries.
So it's about making database access more intuitive and efficient.
Right.
So what's new for EF Core in .NET 9?
Well, the Azure Cosmos DB provider got a lot of love.
Which is used for?
Interacting with Microsoft's NoSQL database service, they made it faster, more stable, easier to use. Big improvements.
So if you're building apps that use Azure Cosmos DB, this is big news.
Huge news.
And they're not stopping there, right? There's more to come for EF Core.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're working towards AOT compilation and precompiled queries.
Those could lead to some serious performance gains.
Absolutely.
So it's clear that they're committed to making EF Core a really powerful and efficient solution for .NET developers.
They are.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here in this first part of our deep dive into .NET 9.
Oh, we have.
We've explored the inner workings of the runtime, talked about libraries, the SDK, AI, web dev, cross-platform dev.
It's a big release.
It is. .NET 9 has a lot to offer, but we're not done yet.
Nope, there's more to come. C-Share, FTAR, WPF, WinForms, lots more to explore.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Ready for more.
You bet. Last time we were talking about EF Core and those future performance boosts.
Right.
But let's switch gears a bit.
Sure.
Talk about the languages themselves.
C# and F#.
Yeah, the backbone of .NET development.
Absolutely. And they both got some nice upgrades in .NET 9.
Okay.
C# 13 especially. Lots of new features.
Like what?
Well, one of the most practical ones, I think, is params collections.
Params collections.
Yeah, you know how you can use params for, like, a variable number of arguments?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do that with collections, too.
Oh, interesting.
Any collection that implements IEnumerable T.
Makes your methods more flexible.
Exactly.
More adaptable.
I like it. So what else is new in C# Land?
They added a whole new lock type
Okay.
with better semantics for thread safety.
Thread safety. Important stuff.
It is. It's a much better way to handle locking. Makes your code more robust, prevents those weird concurrency bugs. Makes sense. Any smaller improvements, like quality of life stuff?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a new escape sequence.
Okay.
It's just shorthand for the escape character.
Handy for, like, terminal output.
Yeah, we're generating escape codes. And they made some improvements to type inference for method groups.
So less verbose code.
Exactly. Oh, and for object initializers, you can now use indexer syntax directly to set key value pairs, especially useful for, like, dictionary-like objects.
I see. So it's making the code more readable, more intuitive.
Exactly.
Any features for more I guess, advanced scenarios.
Oh, yeah, definitely. For those who need like really fine-grained control over memory,
Mm-hmm.
C# 13 now lets you use ref locals and unsafe context in iterators and async methods.
Okay.
And for generics, ref struct types can now implement interfaces,
Interesting.
and they can be used as generic type parameters.
So you can do more with ref struct types now.
A lot more. Really powerful for writing optimized and reusable code.
Cool. What about partial types? Any changes there?
They added support for partial properties and indexers.
So you can split them across multiple files.
Yep. Makes it easier to manage those really big classes.
I can see that being useful.
Definitely. Oh, and there's this new thing called overload resolution priority.
Overload resolution priority.
Yeah, it gives library authors more control over how the compiler chooses between different method overloads.
Okay. Sounds a bit technical.
It is a bit. And there's a preview feature called field-backed properties.
Go to those.
They give you more control over the backing fields for those auto-implemented properties.
Interesting. I'll have to read up on that.
Me too, actually. It's pretty new.
Okay, so that's C# 13. What about F#? What's new in F# 9?
Oh, F# 9 has some cool stuff too.
Like what?
One of the biggest things is nullable reference types.
Ah, so they're bringing that over from C#.
They are. Same level of code safety, same robustness.
Really improves code reliability.
It does. And for those who work with discriminated unions, they added these Iosiris properties.
Okay.
It's just a little syntactic sugar.
But helpful, I imagine.
It makes it easier to check which case a discriminated union holds.
Simplifies pattern matching, I bet.
It does. Oh, and they made a small change to partial active patterns.
Okay.
They can return a bool value now.
More flexibility.
Exactly. And there's a slight shift in behavior. F# 9 now prefers extension methods over intrinsic properties when you provide arguments.
Okay.
It's just about ensuring consistent behavior.
Makes it
And for computation expressions, they added empty-bodied computation expressions.
empty-bodied.
Yeah, it's a more concise way to represent those computations that don't actually do anything.
I see. So it's more about like the structure of the code.
Right.
Okay. Anything else worth mentioning in F9?
Oh yeah, they enhanced metaprogramming. Hash directives can now accept non-string arguments.
More flexibility there.
And for the interactive SCHOG folks, the hashtag help directive now shows documentation right in the REPL.
So you don't have to like go look it up separately.
Exactly. It's right there at your fingertips.
I like that.
And there are a bunch of other smaller improvements too. Warning suppression, a new warning for the tail call attribute, enforcing attribute targets, random functions for collections, better C# collection support, lots of good stuff.
So it's a solid release for F# developers.
It is. Oh, and they also made some general improvements to developer productivity, performance, and tooling.
So F# is becoming an even more attractive option for functional programming in .NET.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Okay, let's shift our focus now to something else that's near and dear to many .NET developers.
What's that?
The Windows desktop.
Ah.
What's happening with WPF and WinForms?
Well, they might be mature frameworks, but they're still getting some love. WPF, for example, has been updated to support the Windows Fluent theme.
So your apps can have that modern look and feel.
Exactly. And it's not just the Fluent theme. WPF now supports light and dark modes, too.
Oh, nice.
Your app can automatically adjust to the user's preferences.
That's a nice touch.
And they even added support for the Windows accent color. You can use it in your app's theme.
So it's all about making WPF apps feel more integrated with Windows.
Exactly.
What about performance? Any improvements there?
They made some improvements to font rendering.
Okay.
They added support for hyphen-based ligatures.
Which makes the text look
More polished, more professional.
and on the security side.
They removed support for binary formatter.
Because
It had some known security vulnerabilities.
so safer and prettier.
Exactly.
Okay. Now what about WinForms?
WinForms got some updates too.
Like what?
Well, there's experimental support for show dialog async,
Right.
for form and task dialog. You can display dialog boxes asynchronously now. Ah, so the main thread doesn't get blocked.
Exactly. Makes your app more responsive.
And just like WPF, they dropped support for binary formatter.
Yep, for security reasons.
Got it. Anything else?
Oh, they added experimental support for dark mode rendering,
Keeping up with the times.
and they made some smaller improvements to folder browser dialog and the tool strip control
Mm,
made them a bit easier to use.
those little things can make a big difference.
They can. And they didn't forget about system drawing.
That's used for.
Graphics and image manipulation. They added a bunch of new features.
Like what?
GDI Plus, effects wrapping, support for read-only span, better interop code generation.
Yeah.
They really overhauled it.
Wow, sounds like system drawing got a major upgrade.
It did. It's more powerful, more efficient, more enjoyable to use.
Well, I think that covers all the major highlights of .NET 9. That was quite a journey,
It was.
from the runtime and libraries to the SDK and frameworks.
.NET 9 is packed with new stuff, performance improvements, a vision for the future. It is.
Yeah.
And it's clear that Microsoft is committed to making .NET a really powerful and versatile platform.
For sure. For developers of all backgrounds and skill level.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up completely, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
For me, it's the focus on performance.
Performance.
Yeah, it's everywhere. The runtime, the libraries, the frameworks, everything in .NET 9 is about making apps faster, more efficient, more scalable.
I agree. It's impressive how they've managed to optimize performance at every level of the platform.
They really have. And it's not just about making things run faster either.
Right.
It's about creating a smoother, more responsive experience for everyone.
For both developers and users.
Exactly.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to leave our listeners with something to think about. With all these advancements in .NET 9, where do you see the platform going in the future? What's your prediction?
Yeah, it really does feel like .NET is hitting its stride now.
It is, yeah. Pushing the boundaries, but, not losing sight of what makes it great.
Developer productivity, elegant need all that.
Exactly. I mean, it's a good time to be a .NET developer, that's for sure.
And for everyone listening, remember, we've just skimmed the surface here.
Oh, yeah, we have. There's so much more to discover in .NET 9.
So many features, improvements, all waiting to be explored.
Definitely. If you really want to level up your skills or just, stay ahead of the game,
Yeah.
I'd say dive deeper into some of these topics.
And the good news is Microsoft has a ton of resources
You do, yeah. Documentation, tutorials, all sorts of stuff.
to help you get the most out of .NET 9.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to experiment,
Yeah, try out the new features, see what you can build. Who knows, maybe you'll discover something we haven't even thought of.
It's possible. There's always something new to find.
The possibilities are endless. Well, that brings us to the end of our .NET 9 deep dive.
It does.
It's been a real pleasure exploring this release with you.
Likewise, I always enjoy getting into the nitty-gritty of .NET and seeing where things are headed.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've learned something new today.
And that you're feeling inspired to, take your .NET skills to the next level.
Exactly. And remember, the best way to learn is to actually do it.
So go fire up that IDE, get the latest .NET 9 SDK, and start building something amazing.
Until next time, happy coding.